Welcome and good morning, and thanks for watching again, Mike Ferry TV. It's the week of November 2nd, 2015. Obviously, our time is running out for the year. Let's put it in overdrive. Remember, selling real estate is a marathon. It is not a sprint. This is the type of business where you have to work every week, every month, not once in a while, not occasionally, or unfortunately when you feel like it. I want you to focus on three words or thoughts today. Three phrases, a better way to say it. And I've asked a lot of my coaching clients to look at this very carefully in some of the work we're doing. I want you to write down contacts to appointments. How many contacts do you have to make to get an appointment? I want you to write second, appointments to contracts. How many appointments do you have to go on to get a contract signed? And then third, I want you to write down contracts to closings. Now, one of the things that you have to work on in November and December, in my opinion, is we have to work on raising and or changing to a more positive model our levels of efficiency. How efficient are you? Now, you're saying, Mike, I want to do 10 deals a year. How efficient do I have to be? Well, the odds are you're not efficient at all doing 10 deals a year, because if you're doing 10, you could do 20 or 30. And it's the inefficiency of your time, the inefficiency of what you say, the inefficiency of your activities that is keeping you as productive as you are. Well, Mike, on 10 deals a month, I can make $75,000. That's more than enough money. And I understand that. But you're involved with Mike Ferry TV, you're involved with my company in our training because you want to improve production and improve your income. That's why you're involved. Or you want to become more efficient, which is doing more in less time, or simply doing more and getting more out of the time you have. I had a client, probably it's been 2 years or so from the past, and this particular man had called, and this happens a lot. He had called to talk to me. He was involved in our coaching, new to it, and here was his challenge. First of all, the man was probably mid-40s, had 5 or 6 years of real estate experience, was okay in production, doing that 15 to 20 deals a year, but joined the coaching because he wanted to improve. He was highly analytical, so very methodical in his approach. He was making about 500 contacts to get an appointment. And he said to me, this doesn't work. Something is wrong. What can I do? So we looked at 9 different thoughts under these 3 areas: contacts to appointments, appointments to contracts, and contracts to closing. I gave him 3 thoughts to work on each of these 3 areas, which he worked on hard for probably 18 to 20 months. And his production went in about 20 months from 20 deals to 59 closed on that next period of time. See, anybody, all of us, can become much more efficient and much more productive at the same time. So here's what I worked with him on. We started with his contacts to appointments. He was making 500, okay? That is, if he's making 100 contacts a day, which nobody does, it's going to take him 5 days to get an appointment. Well, that makes no sense because something is very awry or very wrong with what he's doing. So first thing I said is we have to address, who are you calling? This particular man had a giant hang-up. He loved making cold calls. He would sit there and dial and dial and dial and dial. And of course, because he was just making cold calls, his response was much lower than it should have been or could have been if he called other people. So we had him start working on his database. He's calling his past clients centers of influence. We worked with him on his scripting for buy owners and expireds. We worked on just listed, just sold, both doors and calls. Well, first thing we had to address, who is he calling? Who are you talking to, or are you talking to anybody at all? Then the second thing we addressed with this particular man is, what are you saying when you talk to people? For example, he would call and say, I'm so-and-so with so-and-so, do you want to sell your home? Well, we know the answer. Okay, it's going to be no 99.9% of the time. So we structured some scripting for calling his database, calling the past clients, centers of influence, scripting for the buy owners, expired, just listed, just sold. And of course, now he's calling me 30 days, 45 days later saying, wow, this is great. I'm getting a much better response. So first, who are you calling? Second, what are you saying? And then third, we talked about his tonality. His background was very flat tone speaking. How are you? How have you been? What's going on? Nice to talk to you. It's great to see you. Well, I said, you got to put some life in your voice. I said, you can't expect people that you don't know, that you can't physically see when you're on the phone, for example, to respond in a positive manner if you don't have some tonality. I said a little energy, a little enthusiasm, a little excitement. You're excited about talking to this person. They answered the phone. They answered their door. Be excited about that. So by changing who you're calling, what you're saying in his tonality, we dramatically changed his results from the contacts to appointments. Then we had to look second at the actual appointments to contracts signed. He was running about 30% of the time when he would make a presentation, they would sign a listing agreement. So if he went on 10, he got 3. And, that's not bad. But we said to him, we need to get you to 60 to 70%. How do you do that? I said, well, there's 3 things we have to work on. Obviously, you have to be much stronger on your pre-qualifying if you expect to get the response on the presentation that you'd like to get. Stronger in pre-qualifying. Are you asking all the questions every time, listening to the answers, and responding to those answers in an appropriate fashion? Well, he admitted he wasn't pre-qualifying. Are you using the listing presentation script? Well, I don't like your script, and most of it doesn't make sense, so we had to start working on that. You see why in 18-month time it took to get this guy to where he belongs? It takes time to change. So a lot of role play, a lot of practice on the listing presentation. And then I started throwing objections at him, common objections. We're going to talk to 2 other companies. We want you to cut your commission. Common objections, and how was he responding? So what we had to do to get the ratio, which we did from 30% to 70, we had to dramatically change his pre-qualifying process, listing presentation scripting, and then having an answer to the objections that came up. Well, the third area, of course, was now he's getting contracts signed. How do we turn those contracts into a commission check, to a closing? And that, of course, is always the challenge. So we worked on 3 things again. I said, here's what we have to think about. The reason some of the listings you have are not selling is because you took some of these listings, based on your descriptions that I'm hearing, out of desperation. You didn't take it because it was a purposeful, meaningful, really good potential seller. You were desperate for a listing, or you were trying to prove to your coach or to Mike Ferry that you're making changes and you're taking listings, which we're happy for. But if you're taking them out of desperation, are you going to accomplish the goals you've set? Remember, desperation is the downfall of all success. When you're desperate, you do dumb things, you say dumb things, we react in dumb manners. We can't do that. I said, second, you're making presentations, even though you're pre-qualifying, to non-motivated sellers, and you're taking listings from non-motivated sellers. And he admitted, he said, yes, I have. He said, probably 30% of my listings, they really didn't have to sell, which brings us to the third point, which of course is pricing. So we had to work with his coach on every week getting the prices in line. But if he's taking it out of desperation, they believe his price should be up there. And if he's talking to non-motivated sellers, it's hard to get a price reduction because they didn't want to sell in the first place. So you can see the complications in this. Now, I know what some of you are going to say. It's just easier to do 5 or 10 deals a year and to work with buyers than to go through this process. Well, here we are, November of 2015. We've got 2 months left to start working on 2016. Do you want the same results in 2016 you had in 2015? If you're doing 50 deals a year, the answer should be yes, but let's improve. Do you want the same income? What if the economy changes? What if there's a little drift in the real estate market and you are not mentally, physically, emotionally strong enough to withstand that? You're going to be in trouble in 2016 unless we start changing some of the behaviors we have. If we're not willing to change our behaviors, what kind of a chance do we have? Hardest thing in life is changing behavior. Until you change your behavior, you can't change the results. The oldest, goofiest line in the world, Always doing the same thing and expecting different results. It's a sign of a mental problem. So let's look at our goal for 2016. What do you have planned? And next week, we're going to talk about a basic outline of your business plan for you so you can become more efficient and become more productive. It's hard to be great. It's easy to be mediocre. Which would you like to be? Talk to you next week.